My name's Danielle Sanderson. I started running back in 1989. At that stage I had not the slightest interest in sport. I mean, if you think of the person you know who is least interested, then that was me. I read newspapers, but I certainly wasn't really aware of the sports pages and really had no interest. I'd vaguely heard of Sebastian Coe and Zola Bard. I had a slight interest in gymnastics, so Nadia Comaneci and Olga Korbut, I suppose, were my sporting idols, if any, but I really wasn't a sports person. I mean, back at school, I suppose I was something of a swat, occasionally second team netball or hockey, but that was about the extent of it. So, how come I got into running? Well, I read physics at Oxford. I went out to CERN in Geneva, the fundamental particle physics place, just as a 3-month vacation student. They took students from all of the 14 or so member states. I went out there for a bit. After that, I joined a multinational computer consultancy firm, CAP Group, which became Sema Group, and I was working in operational research. And then, after a couple of years, I moved into the training department. And on all courses, I introduced the topic of action planning, which is about setting goals and planning how to achieve them, being very specific, measurable goals. I don't know if you're familiar with the idea of SMART goals. And I thought, I can't tell my students what a useful technique it is unless I try it for myself. So I set myself various work-related goals and also a couple of non-work-related. One of which was to do the Krypton factor, if some of you remember ITV's Krypton factor, and the other was to run a marathon. So if I just quickly deal with the Krypton factor first, I applied along with 11,500 other people for the Krypton factor. Does everyone remember the Krypton factor?
Yeah,
everyone
for sure.
aware of it?
Yeah.
Yes, what have you come across? It was an ITV programme where you had to do all sorts of things, ranging from the mental agility round, the flight simulator, general knowledge, a 3D puzzle you had to put together, and an assault course, a whole range of things. So it was meant to test all-round ability. Anyway, the 11,500 or so of us got whittled down after various stages of interview and so on, down to, well, eventually 36 of us who got through to the telly bit, which did include me. And the first part of that was the assault course. And probably if it had taken place several months later, I might have done rather better. But at this stage, I hadn't yet started the running, and it was Pesach, and there was snow on the ground. It was filmed in the April up near Bolton, Holcombe Moor or something like that, and there was snow on the ground. There was nothing I could eat. Because I hadn't yet started running, I just accepted the fact when they sent me a pair of shoes that I didn't really think I had any choice but to wear these killingly uncomfortable shoes. And as I say, there was nothing really I could eat. I think I might have brought a bit of mozza with me, but that, I wasn't well sustained. Anyway, I got stuck inside the S-bend on the assault course and didn't do so well in that. So that didn't get me off to a particularly good start. But then the rest of it was filmed a few months later in the Granada studios, and that went a bit better. I won the mental agility round. It wasn't quite what it seemed. They did give us a lot of notice of what we were going to be asked to do. So for the mental agility round, what I had to do was to reverse everything. If they gave me a sentence, I had to do it word for word backwards. If they gave me a word, I had to spell it backwards. And so for the 2 or 3 weeks notice that I had, I was just practicing it. Any time anyone said something to me, I would reverse it. And I won that very well. So that looked impressive because that was the first round on the telly. Later on, once they included the assault course and the fact that I'd crashed the flight simulator, then I didn't do quite so well and answered some of the general knowledge questions pretty appallingly. But anyway, I'd achieved my goal of being on the Krypton factor. Then my other goal was to run a marathon. So at about the same time, I started jogging. And I said, right, this weekend I'm going to go out and jog 2 miles. And I gradually built it up so that I could jog from my house in Oxley Village to my mum on Harrow Hill, 6 miles. And I managed that, and so then I thought, right, I better enter a half marathon. My goal was to do the London Marathon 1990. So I did the St Albans half marathon exactly, 23 years ago, last weekend. I think it was about the 6th of June or so, 1989. And wearing plimsolls, cut-off jeans and a t-shirt, I managed to finish 5th woman. It was hilly, it was hot, it was it was a hard race, and I had no idea what to expect. I was running with a friend who'd done various half marathons, and I ran with him for the first mile, then I lost him, and I waited for him for a while, and I thought, no, this is silly, I'll just carry on. And I found I was good at it. As I say, I finished 5th woman in about 90 minutes, which was pretty good for plimsolls, cut-off jeans and a t-shirt, and never having run more than 6 miles. So at the end of the race, people came up to me and said, you ought to join a club, you find out a bit more about running, join Watford Harriers, join Watford Joggers, join St Albans or whatever. So I did, I joined Watford Harriers and Watford Joggers at that stage. And as a result of that, going out training with them, I think the first week they said, oh, you must come down to the track on Tuesday. So, okay, I came down to the track, and the coach said something like, spike up. And I hadn't a clue what he was talking about. What he meant was put on your running spikes. I didn't know anything about that. He was saying, right, we're doing, 12 laps. I had no idea how long a lap was, etc. But anyway, I soon learnt. And as a result of joining the running clubs, I discovered that in order to get into the London Marathon in 1990, which was my target race, I would either have to be lucky in the ballot. It never occurred to me there was such a thing as a ballot, that anyone would want to run a marathon, no more people than there were places for. So, or if I could do sub 3 hours 10 in another marathon, then I would get automatic entry. So on 30 miles a week, I did 2 long runs, one of 15 miles, and then 2 weeks before I did a 24-mile run, and then ran the Harrow Marathon in November, beginning of November 1989, and did 3:07. So on very little training, don't know quite how I managed it, but anyway, I got my 3:07, I got my automatic qualifying time for London.
I can remember waving to you as you started your second lap.
Yes.
I think probably I ran the same Harrow Marathon.
Oh, right.
It's a half hour.
Yeah,
Based at Kodak.
I did that Harrow half.
Oh, right,
Yes.
from Kodak,
Yeah,
down Harrow View, yes.
And at the time it was the only marked course in the country that
That's
had
right.
mile markers.
That's
in it.
Really?
right.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know
I
that.
can remember waving you.
Yes.
Yes.
I remember the yellow markers.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. About the year. Yeah. I did it for goodness sake, how many years? Only a half marathon.
But yes, I remember I won a little disposable camera as my prize for finishing third lady, but the main prize was that I got the qualifying time for London. So then I upped my mileage to 60 miles a week and started training reasonably properly. And I did the London Marathon 1990, my original target race, and I ran 2 hours 50, which was, quite respectable. Various people sponsored me. I was running in aid, my father died of colon cancer, so I was running for cancer research. And some people, I remember Jeffrey Davis, for example, he sponsored me and he said he would double it if I broke 3 hours, which I did, so that was quite nice. I raised a reasonable amount of money for cancer research then, and finished 14th British woman and 50th woman overall. It was an international race, and as I was just saying before to some people, in the national press they printed the first 50, so it was quite nice because there was I on that front page of, albeit at the bottom of the list of 50, but there's quite a visible position. So I suppose in a way I'd achieved my original goal of running a marathon when I did Harrow, but of course by then I was hooked. I suppose I did the usual never again, as everyone does as they finish, but the next day you're starting to set yourself more goals. So I was into running. I obviously did have a natural talent for it without having known it. But Stephen and I had always known we wanted to start a family, so I carried on running and setting personal bests at all sorts of distances, from 5k, even, I did some track races. I remember my first 3,000 metres that got a mention in the JC. I think I did about 11:03 or something. But did various track races and longer distance. But then I got pregnant, and I didn't want to give up on my hard-won fitness. And so I had some advice from the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists and from the Olympic Medical Institute. And they said, yes, it should be pretty safe to carry on running, so long as my heart rate isn't too high, I don't get overheated, I take it fairly comfortably. So I carried on running, and then when I was about 29 weeks pregnant, I saw there was a race, the Burnham Beeches Half Marathon, which had a fun run associated with it, with a category most pregnant. So of course I couldn't resist. So I did this fun run, and I persuaded Stephen to do it. Well, some people know my husband. He isn't exactly built for running, but he agreed to do it with me. And well, not only did I beat him by rather a long way, I was also first woman, not just most pregnant, but I was first woman, and I think I was third overall in this fun run. And then I think I did the relay straight after that, and everything seemed fine. So then I took part in a few more races, including a 10-mile race when I was about 7 months pregnant,
Wow.
and a couple of track races at 37, 38 weeks pregnant, a few days before giving birth to Joseph.